Who said the mantra? Yeah, hopefully everybody. That's the main idea is, okay, great. Who had thoughts? Thoughts, yeah, but practically everybody did. I don't know if we just said mantra all the way through. Anybody experience the gap? Have any sense of leaving here or like that kind of a thing? Okay. Yeah, we didn't meditate all that long. And to be honest, you never get into the gap by anticipating the gap. One of the things with meditation is you never anticipate any benefit during the meditation at all. The benefits of meditation don't come during the meditation. That will keep you on the level of focused concentration and judgment. So we'll have, a certain level of anticipation and judgment around whether that's happening, and don't look for any benefits of meditation in meditation. And then when you see the benefits is when, other people see it down the road, when they notice a different you, and there's like, certain, patterns have fallen off, different habits have gotten better, different things, limiting beliefs don't eventually hold up that well, It's, the benefits of meditation happen when you're walking down the street, like months later, you go, oh my gosh, I didn't realize, this is what I do, and I always do this or that, and I'm always bringing that into these situations. It's all these different things you'll notice that happens when you, outside of meditation, because the ego box, when you start meditating, there's a lot of subconscious mind. There's so much stuff going on subconsciously, but we're literally bringing the subconscious mind into the conscious mind, regularly by seeing all these places that our thoughts go, and monitoring, seeing our what our sense of self is made of and how that works and everything, So, okay, did anybody fall asleep? No. Okay, that happens.
Yeah, well, as I noticed myself kind of maybe drifting off, then I went to who am I? And then I kind of have to open my eyes, change my focus, and then, so those are just little things that keep me from falling asleep.
I see, yeah. Right, and it's pretty common, like people will ask me but it's very common when you start meditating that you'll want to fall asleep. You know what it means when you start falling asleep when you're meditating? It means you're tired. I know it sounds obvious, but some people they don't think that. They think, like, I've had people ask me over the years doing like meditation classes, they're like, they talk to me on the side and be like, every time I sit down and meditate, I've been doing it that long, I know, but I keep wanting to fall asleep. I mean, what does that mean? Is there something I don't want to face? Am I repressing something and I don't want to know about it? I don't know, maybe, but maybe it's not that complicated. You probably just tired. Most people are kind of suffering some level of low-grade exhaustion, and fight or flight all the time and running around handling the world, everything we have to do. Most people use kind of a combination, whether it's obvious or not, of different stimulants and tranquilizers, to kind of make life happen. Some are far less legal, but some are pretty common, like sugar, alcohol, caffeine, tobacco. Those are all very readily available and legal, right? But people use those because you have to stay centered. We all need to function in the world. We all have to do the day-to-day and be able to handle, doing whatever our job is and making all these observations all day, accurately, and playing the right part in the world. And so when you do different things and they're depleting or whatever, when you start to meditate, all this stuff will become noticeable. Another thing that'll happen is you'll start to feel your body more than you would have, because everything we do is for a reason, and it's very ownership driven, as we're playing the story of ourselves, that whole inner dialogue about who we are and getting stuff and making sure everything works according to protecting that sense of self. That has a certain hypnosis, and it makes us only feel the body so much, only so directly, But with this, we start to have life and self live through us more. It starts to wake up the body awareness. If you're saying this thing over and over in your mind that doesn't mean anything, it doesn't lead anywhere, eventually the mind, what happens with it is that it'll cancel out the thought. And let me kind of say that again, is that when you have no agenda really, because that's about how much force you want to pursue this with. If you're trying too hard. And if you're doing too much. It's just a simple noticing. It's just no agenda, but when you notice that there's thought and you mean it to be mantra, then you make it mantra. Sometimes people will ask me, do I need to say the mantra if I'm really not having any thoughts go on? And I kind of say, we teach that you're supposed to say the mantra, but truthfully, I think I find that it's like pedaling a bike. If If you don't need to pedal the bike, then don't do it. If you're noticing that there's a spaciousness there and it hasn't become a thought yet, and it hasn't been the mantra yet, that's a great place to be, because you're right on the cusp of it. Could be either one, and they sit there canceling each other out. And that would be the gap exactly, because by definition, the gap is a place of no time and no space, and you can't know that you're there, which makes it hard to talk about. So you can't know how long you were there. So the only thing we know when we have the experience of the gap is that we come back and we go, oh, what was that? And we go, there's usually a loss of time, is how you know, because you're like, oh my God, if I was doing a real, I shouldn't say that wasn't real, but like the real meditation length that we recommend, we'll get into the recommendations now, but is 30 minutes. So if you do 30 minutes of that, and let's say I ring the bell, but it only felt like it was like 10 minutes to you, you were likely in the gap because of all this loss of time, when you didn't know where you were for how long, there's no time. So all that shift in sense of pacing and tracking time falls off, and the experience of the gap is that you come back from the gap. It's a little bit disorienting maybe, but that may or may not happen. It doesn't really happen. If it does, it doesn't matter. Like I say, don't anticipate it. Any other particular questions come? Anybody else have anything?
Yeah, so when I noticed that I was doing this and I was wondering if it's okay to I totally breathed in for one part and breathed out for the next. So I was probably breathing a lot more than I normally am, but then I kind of calmed down. But then I noticed later that I switched. I was respirating, and it did I traded what I was doing. I was still breathing with the sound. Is that okay?
So you were probably inhaling with so, and then later you were exhaling with so, right? They flip. So let me tell you that. So I didn't mention the breath with it, but it works to do so with the breath. And then when we teach the so meditation at the Chokra Center, we oftentimes give that to people as the initial way to meditate, because you can do it with the breath, since the breath is two parts. So is two parts. If you want to know what so means, again, if you want to know how to add that to it, it usually means it's looked at as I am or true self. Either way you want to look at that. But again, it's a vibration when you use it in meditation. And so you can use so with the breath, and you kind of say that's maybe not, I don't say one in meditation is more advanced or not, but most people have a lot going on, a turbulent mind, and when you have, that's 2 points to focus on. When you have 2 points to focus on, it's a little bit more pacifying for people at first. We got a lot of fight or flight residuals going on. We're used to having our senses all plugged into the world, 5 senses plugged in, getting feedback and everything like that. So to have all of our attention suddenly try to go to this vibration and nothing else, the mind will start doing all kinds of interesting stuff to you. It'll start you'll see the mantra, in your mind's eye, like the moment's a bouncing ball, mantra, follow it or whatever. So we call that meditation multitasking. The mind will make new points of focus that still kind of have the mantra going on, but do that alongside it. And when we do this 3-part mantra, we don't utilize the breath, because really it'd be nice if eventually the breath kind of falls off, meaning to us we're not noticing it. That's no longer a point of focus. So you can do the Soham with the breath or with that, as a mantra meditation. You can include that.
So to try and move away from the breath being really rhythmic, focusing on that, the goal is to eventually not notice your breathing?
Yeah, I would say so. But again, then there's different ways to meditate that could all work. So I also tell people, do what works for you. As far as recommending how much to meditate, it's typically recommended that we meditate. If you're going to meditate, do it every day, and do it the first thing. If you're only going to do one, do it in the morning. Because then you start off your day with this sort of affinity or acknowledgement of stillness and silence in you before you go into the to the awakening state of the world and join with everybody and everything. So that'll be beneficial. But if you're the optimal thing, I think I put it on your handout, is you want to meditate twice a day, 20 to 30 minutes. That's what we're always taught, and I stick with that, because these are the bookends of your day. Once in the AM and once in the PM, right? So you start your day with meditation and you end it with the meditation, and it becomes really transcendent. It's much faster. David Simon wrote one of his quotes that I always liked. He had a lot of them. Leads say twice a day meditation is more than twice as effective as once a day meditation. So if you can fit it in. Now, most people will say, what are you saying, 30 minutes twice a day? I don't have that. And everybody go like, that's really the truth, is most people go, let me tell you a couple things about meditating, especially with adults, is that they don't have the time, is usually the thing. And there's a lot of fall off with meditators, because by the time we're adults, we're so used to having an identity, and it doesn't seem like fun. It sounds boring to sit there in the dark. It's like, let's see, go out to dinner with friends, or sit alone in my house in the dark with my eyes closed for half an hour, what am I going to do in the evening? And it's easy to make these other choices where, but this thing, if you carve out the time, you get the integration of these shifts in your consciousness. Does anybody know what Ayurveda is? Are you familiar at all? Okay. Yeah, a little bit maybe. Well, it's like the sister science of yoga. And Ayurveda acknowledges 5 different states of mind. And they start with sluggish, where it's kind of hard to collapse observations. It's like you can't focus yet. You're kind of sluggish and groggy and foggy in the mind. You're not really like putting things together. And then there's turbulent or distracted, you can say. So you're either sluggish or you're turbulent. And with fight or flight, it's kind of hard to function because we're going back and forth, oscillating between kind of sluggish because we're tired, and then turbulent and distracted, and that's not that easy. But it's not that obvious, maybe even if that's going on until we start meditating. And then if you do things that help kind of center you and balance you, like diet and exercise, you start to become focused, and that's really the ideal place to kind of meditate, is to do that, when you're in a focused state. But from focused, we can get to these other 2 states, which are one-pointed and then perfected, where we create this cross-hemisphere brain coherence. And so what happens with that is, the left side of the brain controls thinking, figuring, the analytical stuff, and it's based on the past and memory. And then the right side of the brain is based on present moment, future, imagination, like this. But when these things converge and you have this cross-hemisphere brain coherence, you're able to use your faculties the most. So, you're not basing yourself in time. You have this awareness of watching yourself. You shift into these other states of consciousness. So doing this practice paves the way for that. I said there's 3 basic states that everybody experiences. But when we start meditating, we start doing what we call glimpsing the soul, or we call witnessing awareness. It creates this second attention where we're actually witnessing. The birth of witnessing comes through us, like we're consciously aware that we're witnessing where our attention is. And we can see to stop the change of that because we're so used to watching attention just silently with this very minimal, very subtle thing that it can make all kinds of shifts. It can, my mom was a special education teacher, and she would always say I had ADD, or ADHD, so so many people do it, everything like that, because I had all these tendencies. And through meditating, it does a lot for being able to control your attention shifts and notice that and everything like that. So we move toward this one-pointed focus. And it doesn't stop there. As you start witnessing awareness, there can be a whole talk unto itself. I could go forever on just these other states, but you start to go into the 5th state of consciousness, which is where there's a full separation between, like as a full-time thing, watching yourself from outside yourself. When they call that, you'll hear that called cosmic consciousness or Christ consciousness, because there's certain parables that would indicate that he's speaking from that level of consciousness, or some people call it Krishna consciousness. But it's the full realization that you're watching yourself as the first person and the third person at the same time, and it doesn't stop there. There's this awareness that shifts, and they call it divine consciousness, where you're realizing that, so it's said, I'm not saying, this is the report of the stuff that we're talking, is that you will start to recognize that the same ever-present witness isn't just in you, because you can't find yourself anymore. There's no specific location that you are. Yeah, you see the body and everything like that, and yeah, on all these different levels, you're the cells, you're the body, the top of the whole thing, but you never find the observer. And when that doesn't leave you alone anymore, you realize the observer isn't really maybe in the body that much. So, but maybe the observer wakes up in other things too. And so that's where they call it the realm of miracles, because there's like the realization that you can commune with things that also have the essential life in it, and that kind of thing. And it doesn't even stop there. Then from divine consciousness becomes unity consciousness, where not too much to say, except for the act of observing and the observer and what is observed have become one thing, not three things anymore. So there's not just the observing witness and what you're observing in the act of observation. It's one unified thing now. And they say, in that state of consciousness, God's not hard to find. God's impossible to avoid because everything's a miracle. This shift, everything shifts to that. So there's really this journey with this stuff. So I offer those notions, things I had heard along the way as we go with it. And let's see. So just the other thing. So how to do this practically? Do the practice we said. Do it for 20 to 30 minutes a day. And best to have like less noises around. Some people like to light incense and stuff to kind of ritualize the meditation. We usually caution against that because you don't need anything external from yourself to do it. Some people use mala beads and stuff like that. You've seen those. So they're like certain beads that you wear as a necklace or as a bracelet, and you count the mala beads as you go, past each one, right? But which is fine to do. But you don't need anything for this externally, so you can rely on this method, this technique for a lifetime. And most people will say 21 days makes a habit, right? Well, I don't know if you've heard that, but it does. There's a certain thing that happens in our neural net when we do this for about 21 days, where you're right on the cusp of it being just as easy to revert, from doing the habit as it is to stay with the habit. So we're making this new neural net in 21 days, and then a friend of mine said 21 days is a habit, 90 days is a practice, and 1,000 days is mastery. And to be honest, I can't say I've gone 1,000 consecutive days in my life and meditated, but I've been for a long time, and it definitely makes a lot of difference in your life. It's done a lot of things you wouldn't expect. I've told people, it's added inches to my height. Now that sounds like how could that be like a lie? Like are you selling snake oil or something? But no. Let me explain how that could be, because the truth is that certain things we don't realize, right? Like constricting ways. I grew up. There's a lot of mental emotional kind of abuse and bullyism and stuff like that around me. And I remember even as I was 13, with my skateboard and stuff, walking around downtown, and I'd look in the shop windows, and I'd see my reflection, and I realized how much I had my head over my heart, just so much. And growing up very constricted, and it wasn't until I don't know how long into meditating, that I realized one time that I felt my body more directly, and I realized it was a very key epiphany to me that I was I don't feel that good. As good as I ever feel, it's not that much. I was a very humble, shy person, because it was very easy for me to feel out of balance and everything, be very anxious, and I wouldn't do these talks or anything like this, you know what I mean? So as I realized that I could feel my body directly, and I did more yoga, healthier stuff, I started to stand up taller because I started to realize just how uncomfortable that was to be that caved in and constricted all the time. And it didn't make sense. A lot of what happens with meditation is that the box of who you are doesn't fit anymore. Like I say, it's not a personal transformation. It's because of impartiality for who you're not anymore that you really don't, through impartiality, this third person perspective on yourself, that you're not having to abide in different things. So I didn't know who I was caving in for anymore. There wasn't the same influences around me, and I got more closer to my natural height back, right? So there's all these, I can't tell you all the indirect benefits that'll happen for you when you start meditating, but that's the journey. Be there for it and enjoy. Okay. I guess that's it. Does anybody have any other questions or anything like that? Yeah.
I like that when because this who am I is you think this job, that, but if I start who am I not, then I said I'm not that job.
Yeah.
I mean that's just part of me, but it's not. And then the other thing you said about you don't see the benefit while you're doing it, that is a motivator, because just later, it's just like a side effect at some random point in your day or your week. And so that really struck a chord with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I found is That's a process that came from Deepak, so I use that still in my life since I was taught that with them.
What was the question?
Oh, the four soul questions. I do that twice a day, and part of that is because that really hastens the exploration. The idea of those four soul questions is that those questions are actually going on anyway. We're all walking around piloted by these ideas. But we remain conscious so we can excavate our what David Simon would call our most authentic self, and so it's in this pursuit of our own authenticity and this expanded identity, we ask those questions because we're already piloted by who we think we are, what we think we want, and what we think we're here to do. How would we fulfill ourselves by doing our thing? But that refines, and all those answers I've found, and most people will tell you, those change. Who I am. That I'm answering that differently than I once was. Like 5-10 years ago or whatever. And what do I want? Well, we all know that changes, constantly probably. And purpose. You'll see yourself with different life purpose throughout your life. Maybe it's to be a mother or father is more coming to your mind as your life purpose. But maybe it was a career at some point, or maybe you retire. Different things happen. So our life purpose shifts. What we're grateful for is always in flux too. So we continually ask them, so that so we can evolve with them, and it hastens our own journey. So we get stuck. So.